Viewers, what is happening? We are back in the chop shop. Sorry, I've been a bit quiet on the YouTube lately, but yeah, I've had a lot going on. I finished up racing, had a bit of just life admin stuff to sort out at home when I got home after the season last year, and then yeah, retired from professional World Cup racing, which is a big move in my life and career. But yeah, I'm hoping to keep the content nice and consistent for you from now on. Bear with me, I am running a budget setup. We got the iPhone. I've went out and invested in myself, bro. I've bought this $25 JB Hi-Fi mic, so you can give me your honest feedback in the comments. If it's dog shit, I will go get another one. But I figured it'd be better than just the iPhone noise that I used in the iPhone mic that I used in the last video. And I won't sit there and hold it like that the whole time. I'll do you a favor, that's way too influenza, bro. But anyway, let's get into it. We got a special vid today. I figured, seeing as I don't have a bicycle manufacturer sponsor yet, this is the prime time for me to do a video like this. I got 3 World Cup winning horses. Yeah, they've all won World Cups, all in different years and different stages of my career, and they're all very different bikes. So yeah, I'm going to run through the setups on each one, what I liked about them, what I didn't like. I mean, none of them are perfect. They were all great bikes, but yeah, I think it's impossible to have a perfect bike. You're always compromising something. So we'll talk about some of the compromises and what made each bike special. It's also a hot summer's day here in Oz, and we're in the un-aircon chop shop. So if I start sweating like a pig, you know why. And we will have a mid-video intermission taste testing the fresh Lando Norris Moni that just got delivered this morning. So yeah, I'm excited for that. It's in the freezer chilling right now, so it's going to be frosty. But yeah, all right, let's get into it. First off the bat, the 2020/2021 Strive. I rode this for 2 years. My first enduro bike, well, since I started racing full-time enduro. I had an XL and a large frame at the start when I first got this bike, and I rode them for a bit and decided to go with the large because I knew enduro was a bit more tight, a bit more techy, and I felt like you could really throw this thing around a lot easier than the XL. Yeah, so I guess a good place to start is with the wheelbase. Wheelbase on the large is 1230 mil. But yeah, basically this made it super easy to throw around and change direction, which I think is a major thing for enduro. Well, old enduro. We've been riding the same tracks for the last few years, so you kind of know where you're going, but especially first getting into it, I didn't know any of the tracks. You're coming up on sections, you can't remember stuff, you need a late brake or change direction super fast, and the short wheelbase just seemed to handle that real well. I also remember getting to Zermatt, like even then, I feel like, what's that, 5 years ago, the tracks were a little different. Now it is going a bit more catch the lift up, flat out down or race run down, but yeah, rocked up at Zermatt, and there were these bloody corners like that, like just fully back on themselves, like pretty much hiking track with steps and stuff in them. And I remember I could barely even get around the things, and Party Boy was just like wheeling in, up on his front wheel, pivot, wheelie out. And yeah, I think if I didn't have this bike and I had like my Capra, which is what I've been racing the last couple of years, I wouldn't have even made it around some of those turns. So it definitely helped me get into enduro at the start, that shorter wheelbase. All right, next thing I liked about this bike is it was pretty light. I just weighed them all. I have weighed them on a set of home scales, so it's not accurate, but I weighed them all with the same scales, so that's a start. This thing came in at 16.6 kilos, but that's with all the shit on it. I don't think I had inserts in that year, so that's without inserts. But yeah, there's a lot of tools and pumps and tubes and stuff on it. But yeah, the weight is super important because you're carrying that around all day. Like if you do a big 8-hour day in the saddle and you're carrying a heavy bike around, you'll use up so much more energy. Like you see everyone strapping weights to their bike in downhill at the moment, which yeah, that's good for handling, and it's helping with the handling of those downhill bikes over the super fast rough stuff, but it's just not worth it in enduro, especially because you got so much sprinting and accelerating, and the more weight you have, the harder it is to sprint up to speed, and even the harder it is to slow your bike down on a real steep techie section. Like if you need to pull up on a really steep section that you kind of forgot where you are, and you're like, shit, I got to do a turn. Having a lighter bike obviously pulls up a bit quicker as well. So I think the weight is really important for enduro, and it is hard to keep it down with all the stuff you got to carry, especially on your body as well. You end up throwing a few kilos of food and water and stuff on, but yeah, every little bit helps. All right, the next thing I really liked about this horse was the flex. It was, yeah, just super flexy. The traction on this thing was next level. If it was like really dry and skatey, like you could just control like a flat turn or something really well. If you had wet roots, you had off cambers, the thing just used to, it just used to find traction. And I didn't even really understand that until I moved to the next strive, which was way stiffer, but we can talk about that when we get to that bike. But yeah, I also didn't realize that the flex was probably hindering me on some of the more flat out bike park stuff, like rip and turns. Like you can hit the tire on the swing arm, like on command if you want. And there was even a few swing arms that I think I pretty well wore through. So it was probably a bit flexy, but man, also it just made it really easy to ride and really predictable. So I did like that about it. It also had a pretty steep head angle, which, yeah, I guess helped it with the maneuverability and like just turning more at low speed though. Like definitely a bit wiggly or just not very stable when you're hooking. But I feel like those first few years the tracks weren't very fast, so I think it helped me. We did have to run this custom spacer. That was to lift it up a bit, but I don't know why we didn't just run offset bushes and drop the bottom bracket and slacken it. I can't remember why we did that, but I'm sure there was a reason. But yeah, that paired with the one, I think we ran 170 fork, definitely lifted the bottom bracket a bit. But I actually forgot to mention that this is a 150 mil rear, which most people would think is too small for an enduro World Cup bike, but I reckon you're on the money between 150, 160 for an enduro bike, because any bigger and you start getting too heavy, starts getting too sluggish on all the bits where you got to carry speed. And like you've seen, like Charlie Murray's been out there, he won a World Cup. I'm pretty sure he won a World Cup this year on he runs a 145, I'm pretty sure, a 140 mil. So I think there's a lot to be said about that. Everyone's trying to make these big beefy enduro bikes, but yeah, I think it was definitely a good thing. Like you might feel a bit underbiked if you have a really gnarly rough stage, but for the majority of the stages, I think the between 150 and 160, and it's the most I would set up for enduro. We had 750 bars, which was down. I think I ran 780 on the downhill bike, so chopped them down a bit just because the trees are a bit more narrow on the single trail. It was the first year of the Axis, which was sick. No cables, man. That ever since I got that stuff, I've just loved the ease of no cables. That stuff was sick. This shock, I remember doing a RockShox test in Nice. It was at Fabian Burrell's local, and that was the first time I've liked an air shock. We were testing it all day, and then it was feeling pretty good. And then at the end, it was Fab's idea. He did like two more like minor things that I think it was like extra negative band or something to do with the real light rebound tune, but it just like made it so supple off the top and so like fluttery over all the like the chatter, which you normally only kind of feel on a like you know normally feel way more supple on a coil shock at that start stroke. But it managed to do that and then still hold up in the big hits and when you're pumping and stuff. So I felt like that shock at the time was like the perfect combo of traction and support for carry and speed. And I just remember like finishing that day thinking I'd never actually done a test day where I was made it to the end of the day and thought that I had made like a proper good change. So that was real cool. And I also remember trying the Zeb that same camp, but I wasn't allowed it because it was only for the black box guys. So I had to run the lyric. I can't remember how long I ran the lyric for, but I remember putting the Zeb on, and this track was just so gnarly and so rocky. And put the Zeb on, and it just felt like made it feel like a downhill bike. And I was like, "Fuck, I need that thing." We ran 28 hole spoke wheels just for a bit more flex as well. I just felt better, more compliant or more like forgiving. And they're also straight pull on this, which they're quite annoying to lace up and stuff. But I think the idea of straight pull, so if you get a big hit, the spoke will just push through the hub instead of pushing through your rim tape and um, pushing your rim tape out and giving you a flat. So yeah. Also, I was running the O chain for a bit and it felt sick. Well, actually, I put the O chain on, barely even felt a difference, and then the chain kept getting jammed down in there. It would go down in there, and then when I went to pedal, it would just rip the top guide off, and it got so sketchy that I thought if this happens in a race, my overall's done. And it's not worth it. So I didn't end up racing with it after like I think it was 2 races. When it got a bit muddy, it did it even more. But then when I took the O chain off, I was like, damn, like I really noticed how much better it was. So it's crazy how sometimes when you try something and you're kind of like questioning whether it does anything, if you take it back off again and put the previous part back on, then it's sometimes a good indicator of the change. You feel it. You feel it a lot more. Yeah, that's my 2020 and 2021 Strive race bike. Most winning bike I own. It won 5 World Cups and an overall title. So she's a trusty steed. It's done well and it deserves a lifetime of glory on the wall. All right, sorry about that. Need to get a bit of order in the chop shop. I got shit everywhere. The 2022 Strive. This thing was a weapon. Man, when this came out, the pink bikers were jerking it over it, eh? Longer, lower, slacker. All the buzzwords, mate. I was actually sprung this on me pretty late. It was either late 21 or early 22 that I had to ride this for the World Cups. And I was like, shit, what? We got a new Strive? It was already all done before I even signed with Kenyon. So I had no input into it. And yeah, I was really worried to say the least. I was just obviously I had just won on my old bike, and I was like, can't I just try win again on that? Like we're already winning. And then I saw the numbers and rode this thing, and it was like I might as well have been on a different brand. Like everything was so much different, and yeah, it was a bit scary and a bit annoying. But in the end, it was a good bike, and I just had to learn how to use it, and I had to learn to accept change and like I don't know, ride new stuff because it's easy to just think when you're winning on something and going really well on something that it is the only way. But yeah, this thing ended up being good, and I'll give you a run through it. I just listened back to some of that audio. I thought, shit, I've nearly done half the video. I might listen to the audio and see how this was. Sounds dog shit. Sorry about that. I'm trying this new little fuzzy ball top thing here. We'll see if that's better. Hopefully that's better. Man, you pay good money for something, you just expect it to work. We'll see how this goes though. Alright, let's get into this beast. So, wheelbase. Wheelbase, I'm going to put the numbers up on the screen. And I can't remember them exactly, so just whatever it says on the screen, but I'm pretty sure for a size small frame was 1234, and for a size medium, which is what this is, 1260 something. So the small is bigger than my large in the other bike. So that's the reason I rode a small when I first got onto this bike, because I was trying to make everything as close to that bike as possible. As I just said, I just won on it, and like, it's proven, and I want it to be as close to that. But when people found out that it was a small, holy shit, they lost their marbles. But yeah, if the bike's called a large and is even smaller, no one bats an eyelid. But as soon as the bike's called a small, well, I actually ended up having my old style Strive for the first round in Scotland, because I was coming back from injury. I'd had a ladder J on my shoulder, and man, that was the longest recovery for surgery I've ever had. I had barely any time on the bike. After that, I jumped on the small Strive of this and ended up getting a podium in Slovenia. I could get a podium on it. Suck eggs, people. But yeah, they obviously did the sizing a bit whack. Like, yeah, that bike was smaller than it should be. The large was smaller than a large should be because it's outdated geometry. But then this small was way bigger than it should be with even new style geometry. So anyway, apart from the sizing, this was a sick bike. And I'm glad to clear that up. So there's lots of people losing sleep over that. So good to clear that up, and we can get into some of the other things that I actually really frothed about this bike. Probably biggest difference apart from the size was the stiffness. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be like 35% stiffer or something, which, yeah, I did not like it at the start, eh? I really didn't like it. And I also think that's why it didn't work with me trying to ride the small size. Like, I was trying to make this bike as close to that old bike as I could, when really I should have just learnt to ride this for its strengths, because I think what I was doing, making the wheelbase short, made it super playful and super like agile, but then when you would do a flat corner or there wasn't much traction, the stiffness of the bike also added to the stiffness in combination with the short wheelbase just made it feel like there was no traction anywhere. Like, instead of just going to do a turn on that bike and having a nice like flexy feel, like, and you could really feel it into a slide or like feel it tracking up, this thing would just break traction. And yeah, I realized that I did 2 races on the small, and then I thought, man, I need to try something else. So I tried the medium in the gap between Whistler, and Whistler was the first race on the medium, and first race like where I guess my season started to turn around. But that was a combination of getting more bike time since my shoulder and just starting to accept this rig and ride it, ride the bigger size. I felt like the longer wheelbase gave it a bit more traction even with the stiffness. Fast forward to the end of the season, and Crans Montana, this bad horse went number 1 every stage for a clean sweep. Only time I ever did that in my career. So yeah, that was a pretty special race, but I think I really, yeah, just started to learn to ride this thing, and man, that is a perfect spot for it. You can just absolutely send it into bike park turns and sections with this thing, with the stiffness. Like with that, if you go rip a turn, you can feel your tire. You can feel the whole bike. It's like a noodle. Your tire's hitting the swing arm. You're like folding the thing. Whereas this, you can just rip it into a turn so hard, and it feels like you come out of the turn with more speed because your bike didn't suck any of the speed out. And that's the same for like all the other sections where you got to pump and generate speed. There's nothing sucking your energy away. So I think same with Whistler, like a lot of bike park stuff. This bike really went well on that stuff. It was maybe just not as good in some of the like the more techy, chattery, like less tractiony sections. But as I said earlier, every single thing you change on a bike is give and take, and it's all about getting like the perfect compromise of two things, which is what every race is chasing, and it's not an easy task. At slacker head angle, I think this was like it's saying it was 63 degrees on the website, but I remember it was in the 62s. I don't know why, but I remember reading that and thinking these guys are making an enduro bike with downhill angles and geometry. And I mean, that was all the craze at the time because I guess it still is. Like, but transferring from the older style geometry to this new stuff was just all about making your bike more comfortable, more stable at speed, which I suppose that's what you want as a consumer. Like, you go up to your local, you know the track perfectly. You just want to be able to send it down there and feel super comfortable at speed. Whereas what we're doing when we're going to a new venue and trying to ride a trail after one practice lap, you don't want a super stiff, low, slack bike that goes real fast once you know the track. You want something you can maneuver and, as I said earlier, just change direction and it's super agile and super flexy. So it was like a bit of it was hard for me to get my head around all the new geometry and stuff. But yeah, ended up being slacker, way lower. Oh, that's why. So yeah, it said 63 on the website, but it was 62 and a half because I run a 180 fork and the bike comes stocked with 170s. I think I've even got a 190 on there now. I'll get into that, but I ran a 190 at a couple of spots, which was hectic. But yeah, anyway, so it was super slack. We put these special cups in it that brought it back to 64 and a half. Bit steep, a bit more what I was used to. Just try make the bike like turn a bit better and a bit more maneuverable at like lower speed stuff. And yeah, I think it worked real well, and it was a good mix of going from the old bike to try get used to this bike. Yeah, so the 190 fork, first time I rode that was in Slovenia. I was coming off the shoulder injury. We had this 15-minute, might even be more, 15 or 20-minute maybe stage, and my arms were so blown. I could barely hold onto the horse, eh? So I'm like trying all this stuff. I think I already had two 20mm rotors on, so I couldn't do anything with my brakes. The Mavens weren't out yet, which they would have been real nice for that. Um, yeah, I went to Timmy and I was like, bro, my hands are blown. Can we run more travel and soften it up a bit? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So we whacked the 190 on, and yeah, I got on the podium and went from like in the 20s the previous race to on the podium. So I think it worked. And then I busted that back out for a few more races where I thought it could come in handy. Like I think I used it at Whistler where you just bomb and chunky bike park, and I may have used it. I can't remember if I used it in Crans Montana, but I definitely used it in Finale for the Trophy of Nations. But yeah, I think that definitely helped, and it was it was good for some tracks. But yeah, it slackened the head angle back out even with the 64 cups. Wrapping up with the new version of the Strive. It served me well. Got a bunch of podiums. Had my best ever race. Clean sweep. It got first in the individual standings of the Trophy of Nations at the end of that year as well. Didn't have the best luck as a team. I think Geordie snapped his chain. He had a couple mechanicals, so that was no good. But yeah, I think although I liked some aspects of the oldest drive and geometry of that older bike, this was definitely a better all-round package. And I just got caught up in the fact that I'd won on that thing a bunch, and I had such a good year, and I just didn't really want to try anything new. Like, it's just like, as an athlete, you got so much shit going on already. Like, we're winning, won 5 races, won the overall. Like, let me cook, let me do my shit, train. I don't have to worry about trying to get used to a new bike as well. So I think that was the main thing, the main barrier that stopped me really just like getting amongst this bike from the start. But yeah, in the end, it was probably a better package all around, and I've learned over the years that if you've got a good base setup, like, man, there's so many other things that need to be optimal for you to win a World Cup. Like, all right, so having a good bike's important, but man, you need to have a good, healthy home life, like no drama going on. You need to be eating healthy and not have had any injuries and had an insane off season of training. You need good people around you at the races, like teammates that like bring a good vibe. You need a really good team that like supports you in every way, good mechanics so that you can just focus on the race. Like, so you got good accommodation, everything's running on time. Like, there's just so many things that like you could be a little bit stressed and you don't get enough sleep, and like stuff like that is like all of that stuff coming together is a lot more important than just, well, yes, look, what I'm trying to say is your setup's important, but there's so many things that need to come together. You can go down a serious rabbit hole thinking that the bike is absolutely everything. Well, that's what I found out for me anyway. Like, some riders are different, and I was always like, try find a good base setting and then just leave it and focus on getting everything else sorted. Anyway, that was probably a bit off topic there, but let's move on to the Capra. Oh, half time. I'm going to grab a money. Ho, 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 ho. Look at this, bro. How do I get this thing out? It's like getting Thor's hammer out of the rock. There we go. Alright. I'm going to line you up for this crispy. Here we go. Damn! What even is that? That's off its head. It's like a... Is it a melon or a lemon? That's all sorts of goodness, eh? I can't tell if it's melon or lemon, but it goes hard. Shout out to my Monster Oz gang. He's the best, keeping me juiced. Okay, 2023 to 2025, and the last horse of my World Cup racing career, the YT Capra. This one right here won the Alesh World Cup last year in 2024. Oh, and that was a sweet, sweet win, that one. But yes, extra large frame. I think they're 165 rear, I think, around 180 front. But yeah, it was a really hard start for me on YT. Like, man, the team was new. We had a lot to iron out. Like, I had a lot of issues, broken hand, popped shoulder. I was the sickest I've ever been. I was sick for most of the season. I had to miss a whole race because I was just shitting, pissing, vomiting everywhere. Like, could barely get out of bed. I had stuff going on back home. Man, it was a really hard year, and it I think the bike copped a bit of flack. Like, I'd see comments, or people even comment on my stuff like, "Oh, you'd win if you were still on Kenyan, man. And it's just like, bro, you have got no idea what you're talking about, mate. All that shit going on. There were mechanicals, just like lots of bad luck, man. The tape incident, that was this one here. On the Gold Bomber, we're in Ludenville, leading the race up until the last stage. And the tape had been cut and there was just a bunch of wheel tracks with a fresh line mark down there. I just saw it, super tired, followed it, realised that I'd cut the course, pushed back up, went around and went from first to sixth, and I was on a heater on that stage. And that was like heartbreaking. That one. Finale the next year, like this year, I was winning the first day, then just made a stupid mistake the next day and lost so much time, ended up fourth. Poland, I got second, was pretty close to the win. Dude, there's just been so many times that this rig has been on race pace, but it only ended up getting one win in the end. And that's just because that's how racing is. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to mention that because people just automatically think if you're not winning, or because I was winning and now I'm not winning, that it's the bike. But yeah, there's a lot of shit that goes into it and it ain't easy. So if you get some World Cup wins, kids, make sure you enjoy them because they're few and far between. All right, we'll get into some of the specs. Yeah, this is an XL. I think it's the biggest out of the three bikes. I did actually try a large the first time I tested with YT, and it's just a tiny bit small. I ended up trying the large swing arm on the XL front, which felt more like my Kenyans because the Kenyans have a shorter rear swing arm. And I just felt like I was losing traction a bit too much, so put the long swing arm on. I decided pretty early on with this bike that I was just going to pick a setup and just ride it and not worry about it because I had messed around with the Kenyan a bit and I didn't want to make that same mistake. The stiffness of this bike's pretty good. You could go a little flexier, but it's in between the two Kenyans. Like, not too stiff. It's not super flexy either. But yeah, you could play around with it. I remember Casper and Texie maybe were running an alloy rear swing arm, and they really liked it. Casper even he's a lot lighter than me, by the way. He's probably, I don't know what he weighs. I'm 85 kilos, and he's probably maybe 20 kilos less. Anyway, he had the arch cut out of his alloy swing arm, and he had a little brace in there with some bolts. Like, he reckons it felt sick. Flex it up a bit. I'll put some photos in there. Yeah, Cappy and Texie loved tweaking, so they would try all that stuff, and then I'd be like, yeah, what's good? But yeah, I was fine with that. The main things that I didn't like about this bike, which we kind of solved, was felt like a bit of a stink bug to me. I like to ride in the bike and like I don't like the feeling of the back end being high and getting pushed over the front. I felt like I always just felt a little high in the back, but the boys in engineering made us this link, which it basically just shortens the eye to eye and slackens it out a bit, drops the bottom bracket a bit, and that made that feel a lot better. I didn't even try the O-chain the first year because I wanted to have the bike fast and carrying speed through pumpy and pedally stuff, but it's got pretty bad pedal kickback, so ended up running the O-chain and it feels way better with the O-chain. So I've run that the last 2 years. You don't have the issue on this bike where the chain jams. I don't know what that was with the Kenyan. But yeah, that works fine on this. And then the other thing I didn't like that this bike did was under braking, the rear suspension doesn't work very well. Like, you get pretty bad brake jack. So if you're in a really steep, rough track, like when you're on the rear brake, you're skipping all over the joint. It's hard to keep traction, and yeah, that makes it hard to slow down when you're on a really rough steep bit where you want your wheel stay under the ground. And I don't even actually know if there's much you can do about that. we never really did anything about it anyway. But I know they're working on some of that stuff. That was this one here. I had this proto at the start of the year. Texie was riding it all year. He froths it. You would have seen him on it at the races. But for me, I knew this was my last year racing, and I thought I don't need to be screwing around with trying to learn a new bike and trying to change things on a new bike. I just won a Lesh the last World Cup I did on this, and I thought just gonna have another good year training, and yeah, it was kind of the same mentality as earlier in my career. Like, I've got a bike we just won on. I knew stuff on this one could be fixed for the better though, but I still just thought I'm just going to keep using the bike I've won on. And yeah, Texie did some good work and gave some great feedback. I know and Texie are working on that stuff, and I think the next Capra will be a pretty sick rig because those boys are good at what they do. But yeah, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching, people. Hope you learnt a bit. Sorry for the bad mic quality. I will get a new one for you. Yeah, I'm running all my own media. Like, I'm paying for all my flights and doing everything out of my own pocket at the moment. So I'm just trying to run a bit of a budget. So yeah, sorry about that. I hope what you learnt was worth having to listen to the shit mic and the iPhone, but I'll try to get that sorted a bit better for future videos. Yeah, if you like it, comment, like, subscribe, all that. It helps me. And hopefully I can get some more brands involved and sponsoring the channel so that I can bring you more cool content. But I was thinking about getting these 3 rigs, putting them to the test under the clock and seeing which one is the fastest. So if you want to see that video, let me know in the comments. And I suppose I could also do one of these on my downhill rigs. They're up on the wall there. We could do a similar thing where I go over what I liked and didn't like about them. I got a cool prototype one up there from Intense 2 that was alloy. That was a sick rig, the Frankenbike. And I'll be down in Hardline. I'll be getting some trackside action for you. I can't wait for that. It's my favourite spectating event of the year. Followed by Thredbo Cannonball Fest. I'll be racing there. We'll see if this off-season gut can handle a few sprints. Also, what have I got on after that? Shortly after that, I got Trans Taz, and I'll be filming all that too. So we got some sick content coming up. Yeah, if you got any other video ideas, let me know, and I'm keen to keep them coming for you. Thank you, people. Much appreciated. Catch you next time.